My girlfriend, Vicki, the same person, calls me one day and says, gymnasium, the auditorium, and hear what the investigators have to say about this big UFO flap that's going on. And I said, no, I'm not interested in going to that. I don't have any interest in that. And she said, well, you of all people should want to see that. You should want to hear what they have to say. And I say, why? And she goes, well, because you always talked about UFOs when we were teenagers. And in the paper it said that if you see a UFO and you have missing time, that they think that the aliens might have kidnapped you and taken you aboard the spaceship. And they want to hypnotize you to find out what happened to you. And I said, what did you just say? Are you kidding me? I said, are you crazy, Vicki? What are you talking about? And she said, it was in the paper. And she said, well, remember that time, when you were coming to my house and you got there 2 hours late and you were talking about the spaceship and about these little men. And I said, I remember the 2 hours of missing time, but I do not remember talking about little men or a spaceship. And she said, well, you did. And she said, we should go and find out. Maybe you were kidnapped by the aliens. And I said, oh, for God's sake. Then I said something about this is the United States of America. Our government would never let that happen to us. I mean, that's how, and so, I mean, it's hilarious now. But anyway, that's what occurred back when I was 17 years old. So 20 years later, I'm obsessing about it. And she had said that, that they regressed, that they hypnotized people to find out what happened during that missing time. And even though I didn't believe in the whole ET thing or the kidnapping of people by aliens, I thought, well, those investigators probably know the name of a really good hypnotist. So I said, I'll go with you to that. And so we went together, and I was going to corner one of the investigators and make them give me the name of the hypnotist that they recommend. Because I didn't want to just go to anybody, because I wanted somebody who was really, really good and wouldn't lead me under hypnosis. So I ended up connecting with Don Schmidt, he's a best-selling author now. He does a lot of stuff on Roswell and Area 51. He talked to me, and he asked me questions about things, and he stayed in touch with me. I didn't think that he would, but he said, I'll call you, and we'll talk about this, because he wouldn't give me the name. And it took him several months to convince me to allow the Center for UFO Studies in Chicago to be involved in my regression. He had a pretty good idea of what had happened to me. And that was my fear. I was afraid that under hypnosis, they would lead me somehow to find this crazy thing called alien abductions. And I told him that. I said, you're just going to go looking for it. And when you're under hypnosis, you're kind of vulnerable, I think. And I don't want to be led into that story. Because I'm sure that's not what it is. He said, I'm sure it's not either. He said, we want to help you find out what happens so you can have peace of mind. And he said, we don't go looking for that. He said, that's the last thing we hope to find. And I thought, crazy guy, the last thing we hope to find. I mean, it's not even real. I just remember having those kinds of thoughts. And finally, I agreed. I did agree, because when he told me, he said, we just want to help you get peace of mind. And he said, you don't want to go to just anybody. So I did agree to go with him. My husband went down to Chicago with me, and they had the best hypnotist in the world. They had Stanley Mitchell. He was phenomenal. That's part of the reason I went too. He didn't even believe in abductions. He did not believe in this, at least until he met me, I guess. And so that convinced me that maybe he was a good one to go to. It took him a long time to get me to break through the block. They had a huge block on me. And it was quite a fascinating experience to be hypnotized. I've been regressed since then, but I've never had anybody take me to the level that he took me to, where I was literally there. I mean, I was reliving it. Wow. It was so fascinating. Oh, it was so fascinating. That whole thing of being regressed like that, it really proved to me that time doesn't exist. I was really back there reliving it. And what's interesting about it is, under regression, he would stop what was happening. I was reliving it, and he'd say, okay, stop just a second, Sherry, and tell me, where are you? Look around and tell me where you are. And I said, well, I know where I am. I'm on this certain road, this highway. And I said, there's a road over there. And he said, what's the name of that road? And I said, oh, I don't know the name of the road. He said, well, look at the sign. Is there a sign? And I said, and I looked, and I was like, yeah, there's a sign. Now, I'm standing by the side of the road with the ETs, reliving my experience. And in the middle of that experience, I'm looking over at the sign. Now, isn't that fascinating?
Yes.
And so I look at the sign, yeah, and I see it, and I read off the name, and I said, oh, it says Tipperary Road. And he goes, okay. And then at another point, he said, well, what time is it? Or look around the room and tell me what you see, or describe to me this or that. It was really interesting to do that. So I relived the experience, and when he brought me out of it, I was a basket case. I wanted to just crawl into a hole and never come out again, because I had just found out that aliens do kidnap people and take them on the ship. And I thought, what kind of world am I living in? What happened to my safe world? What's going on here? Where's God? Why doesn't he keep things like this from happening? I mean, I can't tell you everything. My husband couldn't even talk to me. He couldn't even look at me. He wouldn't even walk with me. He just distanced himself from that point on, and eventually our marriage came undone. And I don't fault him. It just got too weird after that, because I went home and I thought my dad would know the answers, and he wouldn't even acknowledge me. I would talk to him about it, and he would pretend like I wasn't there. He would just treat me like I was invisible. And I would say, Dad, explain to me, how is this possible? What is this? When he finally, after I begged him so many times, he finally said, it's all in your mind. And I said, oh, okay, so I'm crazy. And so I believed that I did believe that for a long time, except that it started to happen then, or it was happening, but I didn't know it. But because I had undergone hypnosis, now when they were coming for me, I was aware of it, because Stanley Mitchell had said, if you leave the door open, you'll remember with more clarity what had happened to you, and if it happens again, so I was having it happen in real time. So they were coming for me 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, and I knew before they would come, you get that sensation, your hair standing on end on the back of your neck, and I would confront them, and I would fight with them. And I write in the book about how I would fight with them, and I would call them cowards, and I'd say, you're cowards, you're coming in, sneaking in here in the middle of the night, or you're blocking my memories, and you're the cowards, because you can't come and be decent about it. What's wrong with you? Why can't you come and ring my doorbell, and just like a proper person would do, instead of sneaking in here? What are you afraid of? And I just challenged them as much as I could. Oh, it was difficult.
You said that you get that feeling. I've never had that feeling. It's not happened to me, not that I know of anyway. Yeah. What does that feeling feel like? What's the feeling that you get before they come? Before they come? Like a shivery feeling?
Yeah, you get, for instance, they would come every Friday night, because my husband would work until 2 or 3 in the morning with his business. He would have to, and it got to be a pattern. They knew I would be there alone. So they would come for me every Friday night, anywhere from 9 o'clock till 1 o'clock or whatever. I'm not sure of the time, but it would start like at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because I wouldn't be able to work on Friday afternoons. I just couldn't work. And my girls would be home from school, and I would go home to be with them. And it got to the point where I would actually would send them off to be with their friends. I didn't want them at the house. So I would be home alone. Sometimes I would get in my car and drive. I would feel a shift in the energy. And the closer it got to the time of them coming, the hair would stand up in the back of your neck. You would get chills. And it would go, you would feel yourself move into another dimension. Mm-hmm. Like the crickets would stop. Like if I had my doors open and you wouldn't hear the birds or the crickets. You'd be like in a void or in a vacuum. Wow. Sometimes there would be distortions in space, in like your house would look gigantic. The rooms would look huge. Sometimes the temperature would change. There's just a shift, because they're taking me into a higher frequency.
Yeah.
And then they bring their frequency down, and then we meet in the middle. That's how they take me through. And I'm still in my body most of the time. I always went with them physically. So they would take me, and we'd just walk through the walls and stuff, which was weird. That was another thing. I had a lot of trouble with that. Or they would just come and, and just say, Sherry, it's time. It was just traumatizing times.
So what's it like to walk through a wall, Sherry? What's it feel like? What's it to how it's?
As a child, it was interesting as a child. it was fun as a child, but I thought I could do it when I wasn't with them. And I used to try,
Yeah.
I'd push up against the wall and I'd push my hand and I would try. And I was like, I know I can do this. I had enough memory even back then to know that I could do it. But I remember once falling through the rafters of a house that we lived in. It was morning and my husband had gone to work early and we had a big waterbed. And my youngest daughter had come in when her dad left for work and she crawled into the waterbed with me. And they took me, my oldest daughter was a participant as well. And they dropped me through the ceiling, through the roof. And I came awake before I was all the way through it. And I came awake and I saw with very clarity, like slow motion, I saw the beams. I remember how rough the wood was. And I saw spider webs, lots of cobwebs and nails. And I remember thinking, oh, if I got hooked on one of those nails, I would just be torn to shreds. And this insulation, I remember seeing the insulation, and I came down through there. And then by the time I hit the bed, I was solid. I was back, my body was solid because I hit the bed and I hit it hard. And my daughter flew out of bed. I hit it and she went bouncing up and out. She hit the floor, started screaming. My oldest daughter, they dropped her into bed. She hit her head on her headboard and she started screaming. And she came running into my room and she had a big welt starting on the back of her head. So it was just chaotic. And I didn't know what was going on. I instantly marked it up as a dream. I forgot about the falling to the rafters thing. And I grabbed my girls and I ran outside with them because I figured the house was collapsing. That's the only thing that could make sense to me because it felt like my bed had dropped, a good 10 or 20 feet because I hit it so hard. And that's the only thing that made sense is, the house is collapsing because we were on the second floor. So I got my girls and we ran out onto the lawn and I walked around the house. It's all in the book about how I looked everywhere trying to find, and then I went back in the house, made the kids stay out on the lawn, called my dad, had him come out. It's just on and on, those things. But yeah, it's craziness. It's just craziness. And it continues to this day.
But you know what I love about this? This is what I love about this. It speaks to the fluid nature of reality, to the way
exactly
we're perceiving it all as physical, but from that higher dimension, they understand how to mold the energy, how to mold physical, because that's, as humans, this is something that I teach, and this is what we're learning, how to mold the energy, because it's all energy, this cushion, this computer, the body, it's all energy. And they have this expertise in how to manipulate the energy in current time, and to the point where you can walk through walls and transport and go timelines and other planets. Like, woo! It's woo!
But see, the thing of it is, that it isn't in current. It's just, there is no such thing as time. Time is the part of the illusion. So they're beyond the illusion. So we are just projecting the hologram, which I know you know. And so, definitely, this whole 3D experience is nothing but a hologram. It's an illusion, a dream. And so, the reality that we think is so real is not. And that's one thing I wish people could, why they're not picking up on that more, based on the experiences that we are, those of us who are living these things, we bring this information back. It's huge to understand that we're creating this, and we are sharing the agreement that we're going to pretend we're in this solid, real world, when in fact we're not. And we can manipulate easily matter, and we don't have to have form at all. We don't have to have it if we don't want it, or we can at least not be quite this solid and have all the suffering and pain that comes with being solid. So it's quite interesting, very interesting. It's much nicer to me.
But here's the thing about the suffering and pain, and as much as I teach this, I still suffer pain. I've got pain in my body, and is that it is the belief that creates the reality as real. So it is a focus, and as we focus, and this is something that I'm grappling with all the time. Like my knees hurt, right? And when I walk up the stairs, I think, oh, and then in that split second, I think, not my reality. And then I run up the stairs without pain, right? It's like I can shift and I get to the top of the stairs and I'm back in pain again. Like I'm shifting all the time. Reality. It's like in that moment, this is my reality, not my reality, turns off, comes back on, turns off. It's like learning how to navigate, learning how to mold the energy. This is just, anyway, so this is why I love all these, ET stories, because they know how to do it. And in a way, they're teaching us.
Right. Right. I'm glad to hear you say that, Karen, because I've got the same challenge. I don't even believe in disease or illness. Why would I believe in disease or illness? I know totally it's an illusion. It's not real. And yet here I am.
Yeah.
In terrible condition, and I chase those thoughts around, and then I realize that's ridiculous, and I let it go. And I know that love is the healing factor. And I know I know it, but it's tough. It's really, really tough. And to be here and to try to pull yourself up out of it is a real challenge. And I work on it all the time. And I would just love to be able to be free to go into some kind of an ashram or somewhere and just focus 24/7 on it, because I feel like the distractions of the world, working and having to make a living and interacting with other humans and everything, it keeps you in the illusion to a large extent. But that's the challenge, and that's what we're here to try to transform. So
absolutely. But it's interesting just watching your energy, Sherry, as you speak about it and as you remember it. Even remembering and talking about it, your energy shifts. It's sort of sometimes you go back into the trauma of it, and then you kind of go back into the wonder of it. And as you speak about the trauma, you sort of feel the trauma, and as you speak about the wonder, you feel the wonder. And so it's like that's the power of our focus, where we put our focus. And I think the lesson here is to be able to look at the illusion and see it as the illusion, and stay in the wonder, stay in the love, stay in the expansiveness of it, to look at it as a movie. Because I watch my daughter, such an empathic young woman, watch movies, right? And she's so invested in a movie, and she's bawling her eyes out, she's screaming, and she's angry, and it's just a screen. It's all a screen in front of her. It's just a movie. It's like just a movie, bub. And that's what we do. That's life. Life is this movie that we get so invested in. I know.
Yeah, I know. I know better. Because I even raised my girls that way. I would tell them, be angels, float above the world, float above the earth. Don't come down to the ground and be in the muck. Be up above it, because that's the best way to deal with it. And that's how I've tried to live, is to always be aware that it is an illusion and it's not real, and that's not who you are. You're not a body. You're not really separate from your creator. It's, remember who you are. But it's tough. It's very tough, but it's fun. I'm trying to enjoy and appreciate, even with the sickness and everything that's happened to me in the last few years. I look for the deeper meaning in it. I look for the gift in it, and there's a lot. There's a lot there for sure. It's not fun being this sick. It's not fun at all, but I know it's not going to last, of course, forever. And I know that there's going to be a time or moment that comes where I'm going to, just like everything else in my life, I'll see the higher purpose in it. And I'm waiting for that day, and I'm looking forward to that day. But that's how my life goes. There's nothing that has happened in my life, not one little thing that has happened in my life that wasn't scripted, that wasn't conceived by me. Of course, we all do, and allowed by me for my own higher growth and my own, for the experience of it. So I'm learning to love the sickness, as weird and sad and beautiful as that is, but I am embracing it, because the more I embrace it, the more of it that is released. And it's tough. And you tell that to people. You tell that to people who are sick themselves and suffering, and it's not welcome news. They don't want that. They don't want to hear it. I know I didn't the first time somebody told me.
That's the thing about healing. So much healing focuses on fixing and overcoming. And that seems logical. You've got something you don't want, you want to get rid of it. That's logical. Yeah. But what's really interesting, as we start to raise our frequency, and you come from this place, like This is your first, what did Lauren Kurth say? I'm a first earther. This is another starseed I spoke to. I'm a first earther. So you hang out with other dimensions where you understand this, and then you have to remember that actually focusing on getting rid of something is buying into an energy that says it's not wanted, and whatever you resist persists. And so when you say, I don't want this, I'm going to heal myself, you're actually expanding the reality of it. And when you love it and you say, thank you, thank you, thank you, you're actually negating the reason for it to exist, because you've got the lesson. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and love is the great healer. I mean, love, the energy of love is the great healer. And I know that my guys had taught me, they taught me different ways to heal. And one of the ways they taught me to heal was, they said, your body is like your house. That's your home. And if you live in your home and you have a broken window, you don't live with the broken window, you repair it, you fix it. Take out the old window, throw it away, put in a new window. And they said, if you've got something in your body that's broken, remove it and just and replace it, you fix it. And so you use visualization to remove whatever it is. And I use that method a lot, and it worked a lot with minor ailments. With something as serious as I have now, it's not working at all. And that's where it took me to this new level of where I need to be the love that I am and live the love that I am on such a level that sickness, the illusion of sickness, cannot be sustained in my body. And so that's where I'm trying to take it. So, that's where we all are going with the frequencies on the planet going as high as they are. That's where we'll all get eventually. I'm trying to get one step ahead of it because I don't enjoy it. I mean, I love life too much to be. But
here's the great lesson in all of this is that the current manifestation, whatever it is, be it sickness in the body or a broken window, gets all our attention. It's like, I'm in this moment, I feel like this. And so the beauty of manifestation, and this is something that the ETs know, is that because there's no time, when you put your attention or your focus on what you want, you're actually bringing a future time into the now. And that's, imagine, let's use the analogy of the broken window. The window breaks, you look at it, you're staring at it, broken window. And then you think, get it fixed. And interestingly enough, this is what we do. And then you visualize what it would look like as fixed. See? So we've already created we've visualized, or we've tuned into what it would look like when it was fixed. And maybe you're thinking, I always wanted a bigger window. What if I took that window out and we expanded it, a perfect opportunity, and then I would have a better view? And the whole time you're visualizing it. Do you know what I mean? You're visualizing it. Because the broken window is not as challenging as the broken body. Because what we do with our broken bodies is we say, I have this pain, 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 I have this pain. And we keep focusing and keep recreating that same reality over and over and over again, even when we're thinking of it. Instead of visualizing a new body, a body that's without pain. And I've got to say, it's difficult. I've been doing it myself. I've been trying it. What does it look like to have a pain-free body? What does it feel like? What does it look like? So that's why I want to do on Wednesday, I want to do it in a group, because I know the energy of the group is just, when you come together, we're all having our individual creations, but we're sort of connected in a collective intent, of visualizing a new reality. And that's the But let's get back to your story, because there's so much more, because it's a great segue into, you said it beautifully, like when you have an epiphany, when you kind of overcome the trauma, and you said, I know I'll overcome the trauma of this sickness because I've done it before. Let's talk about you overcoming the trauma of, first of all, your world is shattered because something that you thought you didn't believe in is happening. And then you've got to experience the trauma of even coming to the fact that this is a reality, and you're being abducted, and why you're being abducted. And it was a whole terror and fear thing, thinking that it was all a malevolent force that was abducting you for some horrific reason. And then you actually find out the truth of what's happening. Do you want to talk about that?
That's a big, I could talk about that for so long, because it was such a journey to go on to lived with the idea of being a victim for so many years. The abductions were going on after the regression, and the regression was in I'm really bad with dates because I am not used to time, but I think it was 88 or 89, maybe it was 90, did the regression, did a couple of them, and then the Men in Black came calling, and I wasn't able to, they stopped me from doing any more regression work. And so after that, my life was just kind of left like somebody had, a match and threw it in there and burned it to the ground. And so everything was changed. My husband was gone. My neat little life with my prospering business and my kids and everything was shattered. And the abduction stopped after they went for about 18 months total, the intensity of them. And during that time, because I was not as blocked, I was able to remember a lot of the things that were occurring when I was with them. And it was a contradiction for me because here they were coming into my home or stopping my car and taking me from my car, because a lot of my stuff was during the day. Much of my abductions were during the day. In the middle of the day, I would lose 2 hours of time, be driving somewhere, and then all of a sudden, wham, I'd be somewhere else and 2 hours would be missing, and I would have been with them. So they were teaching me things, and that's the part that I was having trouble with, because they taught me that time didn't exist. They taught me about how to heal myself. They taught me how to be a light reader. They told me about what they called the Great Earth Changes. They taught me the 3 important things to know, which they've been teaching me those since I was 3 years old, and it all came crashing in on me, and they were continued those lessons, all kinds of things they were teaching me. And yet, there I was, I had bruises on me. My daughter had bruises on her. She was terrorized and terrified. They were coming into my home at night, in the middle of the night. It was just so confusing to me. And every day I was trying, I'd have to work and run my business, but I couldn't stop thinking about them, and I couldn't stop thinking about the big question: are they evil or are they good? Are they benevolent? All the time, constantly. Are they evil? And I was asking everybody, Don Schmidt, anybody. When he finally said I could start reading books and start looking into this whole thing, which I thought I was the only one in the world who had this. Never had dreamed anybody else had gone through this. I was amazed to find out there were conferences being held where people were talking about this and people had written books about it. Yeah. I was like, wow, I live on a rock or what? So, and everybody, I would ask them, do you think they're evil? Are they evil? And I spent years, trying to figure it out. And then finally, when it stopped, and after a little bit of time, my marriage was over, I just brushed together pieces of my life into a dustpan, piled it up, and tried to make a life out of it, and I just decided to forget about them. And they were gone. I missed them. That was the other part that was really disturbing to me. That's when I thought I really am nuts, because I missed them. And I remember one Sunday afternoon, I was like, where are you? Where are you? And I sent out the energy to them. And I knew that I could find them. I knew that. And I found, and I did. I sent out and I said, where are you? Why have you abandoned me? And he said, we're here. We're always here. We're not focused right now on you. He said, but we're always watching. We're always there. We're always, keeping track of you. And he said, we'll be back. Then I was ashamed. And I felt bad for having done that, because I was like, I wanted them to leave me alone for so long, and was I nuts to want them to, to come back? But I felt really funny about it because I missed them. So my life went on for almost 20 years. Didn't have any contact with them. My daughter did, but I did not. And then in 2008 or 9, right about the time the recession hit, he showed up in my bedroom. Right there. This room that I'm sitting in is the sitting room off my bedroom. This is where he always comes into this room. I've had dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of meetings with him right here in this little space. But he came in, and I was in bed over there, and I woke up, and he's standing there by the bed. Eyes are all sparkly, so I know he's grinning. And I'm like, what are you doing back here? And he said, well, remember I told you about the Great Earth Changes? Well, that's underway, that's happening, and there's work to be done. And then he just hovered above my bed, and we had a really, really long conversation. He told me about how it was going to get so chaotic, and explained how everything was going to, anything that wasn't of love and of light was going to, fall apart and go into ruins, and love would rise to take its place, and that it was going to be a tough time for humanity. So that was when I went off to the desert. The recession hit and my business had stopped, just went dead. So I went to the desert, and that's where I started writing the book. And I had a lot of activity again. The activity had started up, and I was having lots and lots of encounters with them. They were coming a lot, and they were with me all the time. I went through my losses at that time. That's when I went through my awakening. So I lost everything, lost my business, and I lost my wealth, lost my family, lost everyone, lost everything. And it was a humbling experience. And I was feeling bad one day, and I asked them if I could see because I didn't have my family left. My daughters weren't talking to me. My birth family was gone, and lost a lot of my friends. And I was feeling bad one day, kind of pity party maybe even. And I said, I have children, don't I? Can I see some of my children? I just need to be around somebody that, that I love or something. And it took me, and I had a reunion with a bunch of my children. And that was awesome. And a few days after that, I was walking in the desert, and I was talking to them like I do sometimes. And I said, so why are you in my life? Why are you with me my whole life? And why so much? I mean, I had read a few other books by then, not many, because it didn't interest me really. But I read a few books, and I knew other people had experiences like mine. But most people had a few and not so much. Mine was like so much. And I said, why? And I was walking in the desert. It's like he was with me. He pulled back the curtain, and I looked into my own eyes, and I saw me and who I was before I came here. And I answered the call to come to Earth, and it was very emotional. It was Mother Earth had asked for assistance, and so many of us, I mean, the love for Earth is just beyond belief. The planet, humans not so much. No, it was for Mother Earth.
Yeah,
it was for Mother Earth that I came, and I couldn't not come, and I realized I chose this life. And then I saw myself with Da before I came here. He was trying to talk me out of it. He was saying, you don't want to go there. You don't want to step down that far. And I said, yes, I do. And I said, but you have to stay there with me. You have to be there. Promise me you won't let me get trapped there. Promise me that you won't let me forget entirely who I am. And he said, you know the rules. You know how it works. And I said, just be there for me. And he said, of course. And so that's why he's been such a constant in my life. And that's why I have so many daytime abductions also. I found out it's because they're not quite as scary as them, although I've had plenty of them at night. But it's because during the day it's less traumatizing. So that was huge. And I came back from that walk feeling so much better about my life and about things. And then I started to doubt it immediately. I started to go, oh, you made that up. That's not real. You're just lying to yourself. And I'll be darned, I swear it was that afternoon or the next day. It was very soon after that a girlfriend sent me a link to Dolores Cannon.
Yeah.
Talking about the volunteers.
Yeah.
I listened to her talk, and I just sat there and I just wept. I was like, oh my God, there's another one. She's talking about, that's me. And I couldn't believe it. And I thought, okay, I mean, that's how they've been. They take such good care of me, really. I mean, kind of, and kind of not. But kind of they do with things like that, because I'm not allowed to feel too crazy for too long. And they send in the reserves, and they confirm and affirm that, no, you're not crazy and you're not making it up. God told me, he said, you are the worst one. He said, of all the volunteers we work with, you are by far the worst one. He said, you will talk yourself out of everything. He said, we'll be with you, and I'm going to remember this. I'm going to remember this. I'm not going to forget. He said, and what do you do the next morning? You wake up and you're like, well, that was an interesting dream. He said, it's not a dream, Sherry. Stop. It's not a dream. So he does weird things, like he plasters his face on my ceiling. And I'm like, don't do that. And he's like, hey, I said, why do you do that? And he said, those are, what did he call those? Touchstones? I think he called it, those are touchstones or something like that. He said, those are like when they dropped me in the pig pen when I was 17, on a freezing Wisconsin winter night in just a t-shirt. And I said, why do you do that? That's mean. That's a mean thing. I could have froze to death. He said, you're not gonna let you freeze to death. I said, why do you have to do that? And he said, those are markers in your memory that you can go back and you can go, oh yeah, I remember that. That was real. That's not made up. And he said, that's why we did those. He said, because we knew that someday you were going to have to recall all this. And you are just such a doubter. And I said, okay. So it was quite a journey, going from believing you're a victim to understanding that there's a higher purpose to it all. And the transition from living your life, looking at it through eyes of fear, my experiences, that's why it was so fascinating to write the book, because you look at the abduction experience with fear, or you look at anything with fear. Doesn't matter what it is, you look at it through fear, it's going to be fearful, because that's what we do. We project. That's what we do in this world. And we make it prove to ourselves that it's right. So when I stopped having fear about it, changed everything. And then all of a sudden, all of the things that they were teaching me and I was learning from them, that all came to the surface. And there was clarity, and I can't say that I have, complete remembrance of everything. I sure as heck don't, but I don't have the fear anymore. I understand what it's all about. Now I have had mill labs,